Hey everybody, what is going on? This is Scott Garber back in the saddle of the ProFluence Sports podcast, where we are highlighting founders, investors, executives across the sports business landscape. Today I'm excited to welcome my friend, President of Creator at Lift Management, Paul Coggiola, to the show. Paul, my man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Scott. I appreciate you having me on. Excited to chat with you. But yeah, we've been getting a lot of rain in New York recently, and the sun's out today, so things are going well so far.
Come on, man. It took us less than a minute to find what we're grateful for. That's what I'm talking about as we set the tone today. For all you first-time listeners, we're going to cover an arc here. We're going to get to know Paul, his origin story, where he comes from, the transition into what he's been doing at Lyft as creators and athletes are becoming synonymous in the way they capture attention. And then we're going to unpack all the exciting things and initiatives that Lyft has on the horizon. Paul, it's not my story to tell, man. So let's kick things off. Give the listeners a little context to who you are, where you come from, and how you ultimately landed here.
Yeah, for sure. I come from pretty humble beginnings. Born and raised in Plano, Texas, about 30 minutes north of Dallas. So Texas kid through and through. Grew up a massive, massive, massive sports fan. I spent many hours and days and weeks on mock draft message boards back in the day for football, basketball, played fantasy football, fantasy basketball at a young age. Just really was a massive sports fan growing up. Went to college in Oklahoma at Oklahoma State, and graduated 2014. Then navigated my way through Texas and going from Dallas. Then I went to Houston, where I first got into sports and started working for the Major League Soccer team down there. And then that led me to Austin to work at the University of Texas in the athletic department. And then things started to snowball from there when I moved to LA. And happy to go into the full rundown if you want, but wanted to see if that answered your question.
It answers the question, man. And I mean, Paul, I think what's so interesting is we're the same age and we're sort of grew up at this unique time where we got a taste of what it was and we're relevant enough to be in the pocket of where it's going. And so I'm curious, with your love of sport and then spending a decade in LA, when did you sort of see the tea leaves that creators were going to be able to, create noise, demand attention, and that they might actually bleed over into this sporting world?
Yeah, if I was going to tell you that I saw the tea leaves and that creators are going to be the next big thing at one point, I'd be a liar. I think I'm honestly a product of working really hard and being open-minded and not only following what I'm passionate about, which was sports, but also really following the opportunity at the time. So I guess it'd probably be helpful to finish my trajectory.
Yep.
Of so I was working. I started in sports, working in ticket sales, which I know many people do. I sold $8 tickets for the Houston Dynamo back in 2014. And then I went to the University of Texas, did ticket sales and partnerships for them too, and sold across all their sports. And, if you've done ticket sales at any point, you kind of realize that it can be a pretty grinding, grueling job. And I promise I'll answer your question, but I think it's helpful to lead up to that point. My sister was working in entertainment in Los Angeles, and I was always seeing what she was posting on Instagram, and I wanted to live that life. And she said, "Well, you can." So I quit my job in Austin, moved out to LA, crashed on my sister's couch, had no idea what I was going to do. Very stereotypical coming to LA story.
Yeah.
And then I was driving Uber, working in restaurants, and turned down a job with LAFC, the Major League Soccer team out there, because I didn't move to LA to do the same thing that I had just left Austin for. And then one day my sister asked me if I wanted to get a mailroom job at a talent agency called CAA, a creative artist agency. So I wasn't super familiar or privy. I'd heard of it before I came to LA, but, upon doing some research and realizing the opportunity at hand, it seemed like a great opportunity. And so, I started working with athletes there. I worked for the chief communications officer, and then I worked in the sports department. I worked with UFC fighters. I worked with baseball players. I met Shohei Ohtani and his translator, fresh off the plane from Japan.
Wow.
Which was a pretty cool moment. And so to finally answer your question, after my time at CAA, I had an opportunity to get into the gaming space around 2018, 2019. This is when gaming was really picking up a lot of steam. And so I went and worked for a company called Echo Fox, which is a now defunct esports org. They had players in League of Legends and all these various games. And, I wanted to step into a bigger role, but also take a chance on something that was really emerging. So I went into the gaming space, went from there. That ultimately led me to another gaming agency where we represented Twitch live streamers. I did that for about a year and a half, really learned a ton about the Twitch space. when I was at that job and the ins and outs. And then this thing called COVID happened in 2020 and gaming just like went to another stratosphere. So it was very much right place, right time of getting into the creator space. But, the famous quote is luck has been preparation meets opportunity. And so I'd worked really hard. And then around 2021, UTA reached out to me about coming over and joining them as a gaming agent. So went over to UTA, represented a lot of the biggest live streamers and YouTubers in the gaming and live streaming space for 3-4 years. And then about 4 years in, I was asked to build out a sports creators roster, and so make the transition from gaming over to sports specific content creators and everything. And that was really a perfect story of combining my passion of sports with something that I've really learned really well, which was creators. And I always say this of like, I'm not a massive gamer. I grew up playing a lot of video games, but I'm currently not like insanely passionate about it. But I think the experience I had in learning something very niche like gaming had set me up for success in the rest of the content creators world, because I would argue the streaming and gaming space, as far as content creators go, is probably the most niche and specific of how to sell and what to sell. Mm-hmm. And then so being able to combine that knowledge I learned with something I'm passionate about, like the back of my hand of sports, it was really just a perfect marriage. So I think to answer your question of when did I realize it, I think when gaming was really blowing up during COVID, I was like, wow, this is going to be a huge thing. And then I think right when I started building out this sports group and everything when I was at UTA, sports really just started becoming the hottest thing in the world of not only Netflix documentaries, but sports content creators, and like all these big people emerging. So I've always treated my career with a pretty open mind and like tried new things and asked questions, said yes a lot, worked really hard. And ultimately that's what's netted, I think, where I'm currently at, and super grateful to be here.
Come on, man. I'm so glad you elaborated on the story there. It's so neat when you're able to go ahead and sort of take that leap of faith and truly come from the trenches. But like, it's so important, Paul, as we talk to leaders, old and young, across this whole spectrum, to understand multiple facets of how the engine actually works, right? If you only know the automatic when you put it in drive and it goes, like, yeah, you'll get there, but you don't really know how to do it when it breaks. And so I'm really excited to dive into, what the role of president of creator actually means at Lyft. Before we get there, I got to ask a question though. So when you had, sort of your gaming experience, and as you come into this role, timing's everything, right? So when we look at, the manning task, right, where now we're starting to take personalities that go into like concurrent live streams. When we start to go ahead and look at speed demanding more attention than some of the linear broadcasts in FIFA. When this opportunity presented itself, what got you most excited? Was it the timing of the market? Was it like how brands were finally catching up? Like, where did you see like, hey, Lyft is the right place for me to plant my flag and take advantage of what's going on?
Yeah, I think there were a few factors. The biggest thing was like a previous relationship I held from my time at CAA, where I met our current CMO, Corey Van. So me and him went back a ways, and that obviously speaks a lot for itself of not only knowing him, liking him, us getting along and having that trust and bond built. So big shout out to Corey. I wouldn't be here without him. But the other thing was a few different factors. Lyft has been killing it the past couple of years. And to be able to join at this inflection point of like, really hitting our stride, but like just getting started was really exciting to be able to come in at this point. It's one thing, I think, to join a company or a startup or whatever it is when it's like at base level and there hasn't really been any proven success. But it was like this perfect combination of like Lyft feeling startup vibes, but not startup success, because like we were already seeing a lot of success with a lot of the things that we were doing on the athlete representation side. So it was like really nice to like kind of feel like I was coming in at ground level, but there was still enough success and base layer going on to where it wasn't completely starting from scratch. So that was really appealing. I think the other thing too is I'm immensely grateful for all the jobs and career opportunities I've had in my life, especially working at two of the biggest talent agencies in the world, like CA and UTA. I felt really ready to, kind of spread my wings and, build something myself with all the experience and, knowledge that I've garnered over, 12 years now of my career. And I think that was the most exciting thing. I think there were a lot of things that I was super proud of in my time at, the previous jobs I'd held, but I really felt if I was able to step into an opportunity where I could build it myself, that we could really perfect a lot of things and really become more curated and intentional around the talent that we work with, of like helping to build things and while the turnkey opportunities are always going to be there for creators if represent the right people, I think there's a big opportunity to continue to build brands and be super intentional around what they're doing and not necessarily just be a deal maker. Deal making is obviously important and a big part of the job that you do. But I think a lot of, managers, agents, whatever you want to call it in the creator space overlook is really like how to continue to scale their brands and build their IP and everything like that. And that's really what we've been working to champion here at our front.
That's it's a big evolution right now, right? Like, I mean, when we look at the creator life cycle, agencies were built on renting their audience, and we really relied on vanity metrics, right? Like, I mean, the more followers, the more engagement, the more it could sell. Now we're watching the demand for creators go up. The business acumen. We want to start to take ownership. We want to start to own our audience, right? We want to bring them off just linear social so we can engage with them, develop other products. Paul, give me a little insight. What is the mission of Lift Creator? What are you actually trying to solve? How do you guys show up in the market? And then I'm going to ask a couple more pointed questions as to like, where do you see the industry going and how are you staying ahead of it? But give us a little level set as like you take over the presidential role of this division of Lift.
Yeah, I would say the goal of Lift Creators is to, provide a best-in-class experience, not only, again, from, connections and Rolodexes we can offer to the brands front, but again, really helping to champion these creators, build these brands, build out IP they'd be, really excited to make, and ultimately find the intersection of what makes them most marketable while not sacrificing the idea of them making content that they're passionate about. I think a lot of times creators feel they need to either chase trends or make content that they're not that excited about just to feel like they're becoming more marketable. And there's definitely a world out there to where you can make content you're passionate about and have a lot of success doing it. And I think honestly, the best, most marketable, successful content, however you want to define it, comes from people making content that they're just passionate about. They're not chasing a trend or necessarily always trying to chase what other people are doing or emulate what's already out there. But I think the best success comes from like, look at any podcast, look at any successful content creator, look at the biggest people in the game from Kai Cenat to iShowSpeed to, Joe Rogan or, Alex Cooper. Like they all started doing something because they were passionate about doing it and just kept redefining it. And, a lot of people have tried to emulate them since then. But I think before those people did what they were doing and the formats they were doing, it's like they kind of just made something original. So the mission of Lift Creators is to do exactly that, is to help to identify and champion like what creators are passionate about and help bring it to life.
I love that. And I mean, I think there's an evolution that's continuing to happen here, and authenticity wins, right? Like in the age of, AI slop, in the age of like the fundamental question, what makes us human, right? I think that creative lens is always going to be challenged there, right? And so, that authenticity cuts through the noise. And I think not only brands recognize that and consumers, but also it elevates the sporting event. So Paul, I'm going to ask you, man, we're coming off of World Cup, the eyeballs were on us. And let me tell you, the creators demanded just as much attention as some of the star soccer players, which I thought was super interesting, taking a Jameis Winston and making him the face of Fox, and iShowSpeed with a bunch of concurrence. As you reflect on this global tentpole moment, what are some of the things that stick out to you that brands that are doing it right and maybe where they're missing the mark on how they're engaging with creators around these global sporting moments?
Yeah, I think this was the first major sporting event to where honestly I think creators had more of a forefront than celebrities or athletes. Like I saw a number of obviously brand partnerships. Like I saw Harry Kane do a number of things. Obviously you had Landon Donovan doing stuff, and like those are always going to be there. But I felt like this was the first tentpole event where it was like more creators heavy and focused than anything. I thought one that I really liked the creative branding of, like I felt like Visa did a really good job with their tap in campaign, because it was like tap the card but also tap in soccer, and I thought like that was really like nothing crazy but like really creative branding. And I also thought they did a really good job of not being super invasive, of like they just had the creators go to matches and create videos and content that were organic to them and showcasing them being at the matches while keeping the branding super like synergistic between the content itself, but also tap. And like, I really liked the Visa campaign, and I thought it was incredibly well done, and I really liked that. But honestly, I feel like all the brands that showed up in various ways, Dove, Degree, State Farm, Meta, WhatsApp, like Apple, like all these different brands that, I personally saw or either worked with. Like, I feel like everybody did a really good job of making it authentic to, football and soccer, and keeping the natural tone of the creators with it. And yeah, so I really enjoyed it and being at the center point of it. Yeah, it was really special seeing, some of the people that I work with be able to take part in some of these things.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I agree with you. The creators dominated the stage this year, and Paul, sitting on the ProFluence side, we are watching this professionalization of sports. So I'm curious how you guys are marrying that. We have creators that speak to different generations, different genres, and then you have some that cut across all, right? But the World Cup's great; it comes once every 4 years. I'm curious, like, how are you guys thinking about as you build out a talent roster? Getting in front of the Gen Zs and the alphas and leveraging the boom in youth sports here and sort of going into more blue oceans versus where everyone's trying to go upstream. Is that part of your strategy, something you guys talk about as you build out this line of business?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the work that we've done so far has been identifying people that have the opportunity to grow and build. And so obviously when we get the opportunities to sign the people that are already well established and top line, then like we're obviously going to take those chances. But I think as being a smaller, more nimble group, the opportunity to what you're saying of blue ocean water is, really identifying the people that I think are doing a great job, but have so much more opportunity to build. And so that's where we've really identified it, and like looking at different areas of like Kaizen Streamer University, or just utilizing tools to see like who's growing on social media and doing a good job of it, or, emerging YouTube creators, what have you. So that's where we're seeing a lot of success and helping people continue to grow, and not only like continue to grow, but also maybe taking people that have built some success but have kind of plateaued a little bit, and working with them to try and evolve the content that they're making. So yeah, I would say a lot of those are the areas that we're definitely championing.
I love it, man. And it wouldn't be a podcast in 2026 if I don't ask about AI. So as you come into this world, there's obviously a unique relationship on the creator side. As there's more pressure for them to build business. How are you guys leaning in at Lyft, thinking about agentic solutions, providing them to your talent, using them internal? Give us a little peek under the hood. How are you, like, what's your relationship with all the tools that are coming out at, it feels like daily right now? How are you guys thinking about the AI?
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that like sees the use of AI, but I actually don't think it can do everything that a human can. Like, I think the one thing it'll never do is just be able to build that human connection, So I think utilizing it in that lens of like it's a tool to help enhance business and make you more efficient and find more ways to do things is a good way of looking at it. But looking at it of like replacing jobs or what you're doing, I think is the wrong way of looking at it, because I just think there's so many elements us as humans that we're not giving ourselves enough credit for, that AI, just in my opinion, I don't think will ultimately get to replace. Like, sure, could it deal make, could it help make content? Yes, but I think people need to understand what AI is like it's only giving you information and answers based on what already exists. At least as of right now, it's not creating unique and organic ideas, because AI is pulling from information that already exists. So I think if when it comes to originality or creating something fresh or new, or again, like I said, building that human connection, it doesn't necessarily replicate that. But I will say, like, there are definitely instances to where like AI is super helpful of, again, just like staying on top of trends or research or anything like that, and really like helping to supplement information. So I'd say those are the biggest things, but I haven't necessarily seen too many creators like utilize AI in the sense on the content realm. I think like you'll see it, people utilize it for like thumbnails and things like that. And which was pretty frowned upon, I think, when AI was really emerging a year or two ago. But I think now it's just becoming like, okay, this is just like a way of life it is.
Yeah.
But like, it is interesting to see like AI creators and how much those have emerged and how much they will continue to emerge in AI content. But I do think people, like, we've had so much of it the past couple of years. I think people naturally are just still continuing to gravitate to the more humane element of whatever content may be.
Yeah.
I think people are getting really good at being able to spot like AI. And I think AI is going to continue to advance, and it's going to be more difficult to discern between what's AI and what's real. But I still think that naturally, when it comes to things like art and content, whatever it is, like people are always going to crave that more human element of it all. So I think that's my perspective on it. I don't know if that exactly answers the question or the answer
No,
you were looking for, but like that's at least my take on
no, it's great. Like, I mean, I'm always curious, both personally, how we think about it from a business lens, how are we leaning in? And, look at this is a marathon and not a sprint, right? Lyft is building a connected ecosystem. And so I'm always curious, like with the vision of where you guys are going, how do we leverage these tools and think about them to ultimately propel us there, if it gets us there quicker with more accuracy, et cetera. So super interesting perspective. Paul, I'm going to go outside the lane here for a second, but then I'll bring this right back in. Creator has really lived in sort of this like wide breadth of a definition, and like in my early days, creators we would lean towards the ones that had millions of views, right? That had, the big vanity followers that like we could latch on to and really get global reach. I've heard now more recently we're more interested in the micro and the nano creators that don't have as much vanity, but they have real engagement. Talk to me about, as you guys look at signing talent, what are some of the metrics in a creator that you look for that yield success when doing brand deals or developing new ideas?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because like followers are important, but I think it's a very like top level, surface level like appeal. Like it'll like you can get a big number and like it might attract people, but if you look a little bit closer sometimes and you look at video views or engagement or likes or shares or comments, like those are the ones that tell the real story. And even then you have to be discerning because like that can also be bought too. You can buy followers, you can buy likes, you can buy comments and everything. So, but I would say like the biggest things we look at is video views for sure. Like that's probably the number one factor of like seeing how many people are actually watching the content. And then from there, yeah, you look at the comments and the likes and how many people are actually engaging with the content itself. And then you also have to take a deeper dive of like actually going to read the comments and like making sure things are legit and everything like that too. But followers matter less and less these days. Again, it's a good eye-popping stat to have. But as far as like actual value to brands in itself, it's more in everything else I described of like the views and engagement that you're getting. And so, yeah, like partnering with the biggest people is obviously going to be important for massive reach, but massive reach does not necessarily always equal the engagement you'll get by partnering with other people. So, yeah, I think what you've heard is definitely an accurate statement. So, I think the balance of finding the top level people that bring that massive exposure while also balancing it with a lot of the people that bring really good engagement. And I think it's also possible to find massive people that still get good engagement because there are massive people out there that are selective around the content they make and the partnerships they do. And I think that naturally yields better engagement because not everything you're doing is curated to a brand or a deal or whatever it is. And it's just, again, keeping it organic to what you want to make.
I love that. Paul, let me ask you this, right? When we think about creators, it spans a wide variety from athletics to comedy to lifestyle. We're watching a new class of creator come up as executives lean into this role, not necessarily through the lens of their company, but as the thought leader. We just watched Y Combinator take over a whole arena, and it felt like more of a WWE match celebrating these thought leaders and executives, very similar to athletes. I'm curious, are you guys leaning into LinkedIn and sort of what we'll call the non-traditional creator that's demanding attention within the business world? How are you guys thinking about that space?
Yeah, LinkedIn creators is super interesting because it's not something people talk about a lot, but I know a few people on there that like do a pretty good job of it. I think it's the people on LinkedIn that like everybody's going to LinkedIn for like work updates, business updates, here's the news of the space and everything. I think it's the people that can make LinkedIn entertaining that's traditionally viewed as like not entertaining and is supposed to be serious. That's where the value of a LinkedIn content creator might be because again, everybody's going there for news updates, business updates. Here's the net profit of this, da da da, like things like that. But like the people that can make those traditionally viewed sites entertaining and funny and comedic, I think is where you can find real success like that. So I'd say like that's a good example. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting realms of people that, are finding success even beyond your traditional TikTok, Instagram, YouTube content creators. Like there's a lot of people that have success on Patreon, There's a lot of people that have success on some of these paywall sites that, have really found their niche and found an engaged audience that are willing to pay for the premium content, whatever it is. So yeah, those are areas that we look at, but I think it's less of us trying to sign the people that are already doing it on there and more us trying to develop people that we either currently represent or people that we're looking to sign that could have success on sites like those. Because if I went and reached out to somebody who's having success already on Patreon, like that's something they're already doing with themselves. So they're like, there's not as much to develop on that front. And also, like, it's not good business to try and carve out a percentage of something that somebody's already having success with on their own accord.
Absolutely.
So
I couldn't agree with you more.
That's my view. Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that'll dovetail as we start to turn the corner and wind this down. Paul, talk to me like in a world where everyone's becoming a creator or seemingly the hands being forced. How are you guys developing talent? Like, where are you trying to find the kickball dad or the next one that is like sort of living in the shadows? Like, are you just constantly scrolling? Do you have like in the AAU world, like there were people that were out there on the streets that would bring talent in? What's your secret sauce as much as you can share to find the next best, creator?
Yeah, maybe we need to start hosting AAU camps for creators.
Listen, I mean, they got a university already running, Paul. Like, yeah, I mean, right? There might be a business there. I don't know.
I mean, definitely keeping your ear to the ground of the streamer universities of the world. And like, that's kind of a one-on-one thing. So it's not like you're going to see a bunch of different events like that. I would say, but tracking people on those is really great and finding new talent from there. I mean, there are some sites and tools that we use that like do help track like people that are growing, engagement rates and things like that are super useful. I think as far as developing talent goes, like the biggest thing is while I have a sense and idea of like what works, of like what's monetizable, again, similar to AI, that's all based off of my previous experience of like what I know that works. The biggest thing that I know that works and what I always continue to tell creators and clients to do is just make content they're excited about. Don't try and make content based on what you're seeing success with already or what you think a brand is going to want. Naturally, I think if you are creating content you're passionate about and that comes through and you're making engaging content, that's going to be what sells into the brand in itself. I think with somebody like, where are we like developing talent? Like, I think developing talent is really just code word for like what doors are we opening and what relationships are we helping them to make that they maybe didn't have insight into or they didn't have as many connections for. Like, it's not necessarily as much sitting there and like we do some content development with some of our creators of like, okay, how do we take what you're already doing it, but either revamp that, or how do we take your short form and turn it into long form? What production companies can we tap you in with to do that kind of stuff? I think the biggest development stuff is really helping to, okay, how do we take the ideas that you're passionate about and help bring those to life? And how do we open some of these doors with the leagues or brands or teams that you've always wanted to work with? So I think that's the real development side here is like, how do we continue to do the exposure while keeping the main thing and making sure clients are making content that they're passionate about?
Human relationships, how you got here. It's so funny in a world that's moving so technical. We got to remember when we take our shoes off and put our feet in the grass, we're just humans. And Paul, I think that's what's been the biggest takeaway of this conversation is like, yes, we're doing this through a digital medium. Yes, we're touching millions, if not billions of people. But at the end of the day, if we can't convey the human element of what we're doing, going to be really hard to be a creator, at least in the next little bit. What it looks like in the future, Paul, who knows what conversation we're going to be having in a couple of years. Rapid fire as we wind this thing down. As you're surveying the landscape, all creators, is there one that sticks out to you that we should be keeping an eye on, or one that you guys just recently signed?
There's this kid named Haskell that we're working with, who I work with one of my buddies, but he came from Streamer University. He's 19, he's based in LA, but he's just blowing up and like he's a really special talent and like a super funny guy, but also just like has a really good sense of business and what works and what doesn't. So we're really excited about him. But there's I mean, even some of the people we've worked with for a while, like Kickball Dad, like he's done an amazing job of like building what he's like, the empire that he's built has already been great, but like we've really been able to open a lot of doors and, make a few different connections that are only going to continue to enhance and snowball from there. But, there's so many people. We just started working with a girl, Delaney Galbraith, in Sports Girls Club, and like she's continuing to grow, but she just has a really good sense of business. But like we're really super intentional around anybody that we work with, like love working with everybody on our roster and like like there's just so many people that are continuing to evolve. So, I mean, I never want to sell anybody short because genuinely I'm excited about everybody that we work with.
No, it's so great. Well, we're excited. Paul, I'm going to let you take us home, man. This has been an enlightening half an hour conversation, getting a glimpse into what you're doing. Parting thoughts for the listeners that you want to leave them with about yourself, the vision, the mission of what you're going to be accomplishing while you're with Lyft. Take us home, man.
Yeah, best in class in the sense of not only the sense of what works on the creator side of things, but also just like me priding myself of the relationships I build, not only with my clients, but also on the business side. I think that's the biggest thing of somebody who's either starting a career similar to mine or even for a content creator, like priding yourself in the relationships that you build. Like those relationships will always be there, and it's a small space that we work and live in. So you always want to hold yourself to the highest standard on that front. And also you like, this is a simple statement, but a lot of people miss it. Like you really want to make sure that you're working with people that you can trust day in and day out and that are always going to have your best interest at mind, of no matter the room that they're in or the video call that they're on, whether you're a part of it or not. You just want to trust that any conversation that person's having, that they're always going to represent you in the best light possible. So that's what I've really prided myself by. And as you can tell, I very much lead with passion in everything that I do. You know, I'm somebody who's just always wanted to do things that I enjoy. And that's why I think I've been able to build the career that I've had, and I've had so much fun doing it. And I'm really grateful to be able to do a job that like I enjoy doing day in and day out. So
Come on.
I think that's the biggest thing for no matter anybody, of whether you're building a career similar like me, whether you're doing a different job, whether you're a content creator. It's like lead with passion, and the right opportunities typically come.
Man, listen, you are living proof of it, Paul. Appreciate everything you're doing on behalf of ProFluence for the industry. It's incredible to watch the convergence happen, and it's happening right now. And Paul, I think if I would have told you when you were in Frisco and it was cow pastures that you would have the ability to put a little bit of a fingerprint and help shape what the future of this thing looks like, you probably would have laughed at me. But damn it, that's what hard work does. It puts you in the position. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. Listeners, be sure to go check out Lyft Management, the amazing work that Paul's doing, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Well, thanks a lot.